What's going on, my fellow Jets fans? Welcome to the latest episode of the New York Jets State of Mind podcast, coming at you every week at the bare minimum. My name is Malcolm Harper, aka MHJetsFan83. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and YouTube at MHJetsFan83, which is one word, all lowercase. You can find my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. This episode will also be posted on my YouTube channel at MHJetsFan83. Before I get started with my thoughts on the disappointing loss to the Indianapolis Colts, on this past Sunday, and the firing of Joe Douglas, if you could do me a huge favor and share this podcast and my social media accounts with other Jets fans, that would be greatly appreciated. Now let's get to last Sunday's game. I literally have no words right now. The Jets let this game slip away. They lose to the Colts by the score of 28-27. The Jets have now lost 7 of their last 8, and now they're 3-8. And once this becomes official, the Jets' playoff drought will be 14 years in a row. Not only that, but 9 straight years without a winning record, and also 56 years without a Super Bowl as well. Where can I start? I'm absolutely disgusted over the fact that the first 5 drives of the first half, they resulted in a 3 and out in 4 of them. Not to mention the fact that they went for it on 4th down. And so instead of not putting Braylon Allen in yet again to get that 1 yard, what do? They try to do a tight end sneak with Tyler Conklin, and he ends up getting stopped, which resulted in turnovers on downs. The first 3 drives, get this, the Jets had just had 9 plays with 9 yards. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. We did not even get a first down until that last drive to end the first half. Another mind-blowing stat is that Aaron Rodgers passed for 10 yards. According to Steve Palazzo, the winning percentage as the Jets starting quarterbacks are as follows. Zach Wilson, .364 winning percentage. Sam Darnold, 342 winning percentage. And Aaron Rodgers is 273 winning percentage. That is straight up mind boggling. We literally got worse with Aaron Rodgers being a quarterback. And get this, the last 300-yard passing game that Aaron Rodgers had was on December the 12th, 2021. Now you make that 33 straight games and counting. Don't let the stats fool you about Aaron Rodgers' game last Sunday. Even though he was 22 for 29 for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns, in reality, man, he was bad. And let's switch to the other side of the football for a second. I'm not letting the defense off the hook on this. They have been a major disappointment since Saleh been fired. What was the thought process they were playing a cover 2 on the final drive to let the wide receiver go by him, including Sauce Gardner? They have been 1-5 since Saleh was fired. Had an 8-point lead in the fourth quarter and couldn't even hold on. And you get to let Anthony Richardson, who can't even throw to save his life, go right down the field on a 70-yard scoring drive, which on 2 occasions in the fourth quarter, especially that final drive, it capped it off with a touchdown with 46 seconds left in the game. I mean, why would the Jets call the timeout on the final drive as well, too? I didn't understand that either. And then Aaron Rodgers ends up getting sacked and fumbles the ball, and Conklin recovers, which results in a 13-yard loss. Next play, throws an 11-yard pass to Breece Hall. The delay game penalty was called against the Colts. Didn't even help much anyway, because on the final play, Aaron Rodgers gets sacked again for 5 yards, and time runs out. So Aaron Rodgers opts to go for 2, and then Coach Obrick decides to go for the extra point after leading 23-16 with 13:03 left to go in the fourth quarter. Aaron Rodgers was caught off guard, believing the Jets would attempt a 2-point conversion. Now, you talk about not being on the same page with your coach. That pretty much sums up the Jets season. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. Also, in this game, the Jets played not to lose. And with the decision to not go for it on a 4th and 2 at the Colts 37-yard line, when you decide to kick a 35-yard field goal instead of playing to win. See, that right there, those are the type of things that separates the bad teams from the elite teams. Now, let's look at Josh Allen in that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. They ended up going for it on 4th down, and for him to run the football to pretty much put the game on ice against the Kansas City Chiefs, that right there tells you that's how you win. You play to win the game, like in the famous words of Coach Herman Edwards. I'm tired of Jeff Albrecht saying that, oh, it's not in our standards. Well, guess what? It is in your standards. We're a bad football team. We're not a well-coached football team, and players are not playing for each other. I mean, I don't even know what in the world is going on over there. And then with the whole season tickets renewal, I feel bad for the season ticket holders because they have to renew for next season. Why would you actually do this after this debacle? I would not even do it if I was a season ticket holder. I'm not going to tell any Jet fan what to do with their money. So let's get back to the season for a second. After all this going on, we still have 6 games left, and honestly, I'm happy the Jets have a bye week this upcoming weekend. Will be glad when this season is going to be all over. What a disappointment with all the expectations heading into the season. So with that said, I'm still disgusted. I have nothing left to say about this game. Now, let's get to today's news that us Jets fans should not be surprised about, and that's the firing of Joe Douglas as the general manager. Now, honestly, I was not surprised by this at all because the writing was on the wall. And like I mentioned in my previous previous episodes that I did about his last press conference, he was literally dead man walking. So let's call it for what it is. And don't get me wrong, he had some great draft picks, including that 22 class with Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, and Brees Hall. But ultimately, what this comes down to that he ended up missing on Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you cannot expect to survive this and pick another quarterback in the offseason, whether it's free agency or in the draft. And let me just say this, the power structure that Woody Johnson thinks that works when both the GM and the head coach answer to the owner. I'm going to tell you a quick story. During my 20-year career in the United States Air Force, I'm telling you from a professional standpoint, it does not work and it will not work. I was under what's called a chain of command. I've had my fair share when I undercut my supervisor and went to my supervisor's boss on issues I was dealing with and blindsided my immediate supervisor and ended up getting in trouble for not following the chain of command. Ultimately, my point being is, look, the power structure does not work. And what Woody Johnson is actually doing, it will never ever work. You're not how you gonna go? How is the head coach going to go straight to the owner and don't go to the GM? You're basically undermining the GM. I mean, it's total dysfunction. And again, like I said, it will not work and it will never ever work. So Woody Johnson needs to change that power structure, or else the Jets will never ever go anywhere and win. I know I said that I wanted Aaron Rodgers back next season, but after this major shakeup today, I expect the season to be his last. And also, if you're Woody Johnson, please let the new GM put together his own scouting staff and let him pick the head coach so he can put his own coaching staff together. Now, and ultimately picking the right and keeping the right players. And Woody needs to get out of the way and let the football people below him do their jobs. Now, before I sign off, that's all I have to say about the shakeup. I mean, it's been a crazy day. I will say this: it's never a dull moment in Jetland. What can you say? The life of a Jets fan. So, with all that being said, before I sign off, let me get to my favorite part of my podcast, and that's the new follower shout out. Each new follower that follows me on X, Instagram, and YouTube, you'll get a shout out. So, I would like to give a shout out to the following new followers on X: NJ Real Tornik and Same Old NYJ. I would also like to give a shout out to the brand new follower that just followed me on Instagram. Big shout out to Cali Jet One. Thank you for following me on Instagram. Now, I'm signing off as a result of all that. Thanks again for tuning in. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, please do me a favor. Wherever you're listening at or wherever your device you're listening on, please go to X, Instagram, and or YouTube and go to the search box and type in my name at MHJetsFan83, which is one word, all lowercase. Again, I will be posting this episode on my Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. I will also be posting this video version of my podcast on my YouTube page as well. So for the first time since I started this podcast back in September, I will not be on this upcoming weekend. I will be spending time with my family. So I'm going to be back right after Thanksgiving to preview the Week 13 game against the Seattle Seahawks. So until then, I want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with your family and your loved ones. And the one thing that my dad always say is family is all you got. So until then, Jets, in this case, just end the suffering. Take care.